everyone, it's Julia. Thank you so much for joining me today. I'm really excited to share this video with you. Recently, I had a Facebook group reach out to me and ask if I would be interested in doing a collaboration with them. The name of this Facebook group is Postcard Fabric Art. Well, immediately I was intrigued. I mean, how cool does that sound? Now, honestly, I have never heard of sending fabric through the mail as a postcard. I have heard of mail art where people do their artwork and send that through the mail, but I have never heard of doing it with fabric. And I think, you know, what an awesome thing. And a little bit more about that later, but a little bit about this group. Now, obviously it's a bunch of people who love to sew. So immediately I was drawn to that. Very encouraging group. But one of the things I really love about it is everybody's on a different level as far as their sewing skills, and it doesn't matter. Several things that I really love about this whole postcard fabric art is it's not intimidating. Just think about it. A postcard is small. There's a couple different sizes. We're going to go through the details a little bit later, but it's so easy to start a project when it's a smaller project. Another thing I love about it is the sky's the limit. I mean, you can make these complicated, you can make them very simple. Not only is it going through the mail, and you're blessing somebody on the other end who's receiving it, but this is a gift that keeps on giving. And you can frame it, you can use it as a coaster or a mug rug. So many possibilities with this. So I want to share with you a project that I've been working on. Another thing that this group does is every month they have a prompt or an idea that you can run with. So as the month of April, the prompt was diamond. And I am going to be showing you one that I created, and then we're going to create another one similar to it using a very simple technique today. I thought we'd start simple. And I hope you enjoy this. So let's get started. I'm going to go over to the table and show you the one I created and show you some more of the ins and outs about it. This is the example of the PFA I created for April's prompt. The idea for April was diamond. Now you can take this very literally like what I did and just put a diamond, plop a diamond on it, or you could do something perhaps with a lot of bling. You could take it, your favorite Neil Diamond song. You know, several ideas were offered with the prompt. So you can do what you want to do with it. I would honestly love to do this every month and give you a different technique every month. And this month I thought, leave it simple, and we are going to just do a basic crazy quilt. I did use a little bit of a decorative stitch with my sewing machine, and this one I had a diamond stitch on my sewing machine, so I went with that. But I also love crazy quilting because you can add like little pieces of fiber, and there's a ribbon in here, a little piece of yarn. And so that is what we're going to be working on today. Another thing I want to do is to send this to one of you. So please leave a comment down below and comment on if you've ever heard of this or if you've ever sent one before. And I really encourage the members of the group to also leave a comment and just let me know some of your experiences with sending these through the mail, how you're enjoying it, that type of thing. I just want to hear. And also if I misspeak on anything today as far as sizing, if I'm in postage. I went to my postmaster yesterday to try to get just to get a feel about, and he honestly wasn't very helpful. Those of you who have experienced it a little bit, if you can just leave a comment down below, I would love that. And I will be sending two of these out. I'm going to be sending this one, and I'm also going to be sending the one that I am creating today. So two people, I'm just going to randomly select them through my app on the phone, and then I will contact you for your mailing address and that type of thing. So that's how that's going to work. But I want to show you, now this one I made is a 5x7. And another very popular postcard size is a 4x6, and that is the largest a postcard can go through the mail and qualify for the postage of a postcard. So like I said, I worked with a 5x7, and I'm going to be doing that today also. Now this is going to require a little bit more postage. A little bit that I got from my postmaster yesterday was whether it's going to be machinable, like if it'll be able to run through their machine, or unmachinable, which is going to require more postage. Well, possibly if you're putting a lot of beads or buttons on it, it's going to be unmachinable and will cost a little bit more to send. A little bit too, I'm just going to show you, I have a black frame here. This is a 5x7 frame. How easy it would be just to pop that in a frame. So whoever receives this, they're not only going to get a little message from you and a piece of textile art, but it's a gift that keeps giving. Also, like I mentioned, it's great for a mug rug. You know, you can just, or a coaster, or just putting it on your side table. Another idea is, especially if you have beads or fiber that you don't want to get messed up, is you can actually put this in an envelope and send it that way. There are also clear envelopes that they can slide into. So that's another idea. And again, you may want to just talk to your postman about what the postage would be in these different circumstances. A little bit about the structure or what this all entails. The PFAs are 3 layers. You're going to have your top layer, which is your fabric or your work of art. You're going to have a middle layer. They recommend using like a quilt batting. This is a warm and natural. Or also another idea is the Peltex. This is like a very structured interfacing that is ironed on both sides. And this is it's by Pellon, and the number on this is 72F. I actually use this for some of my journals, and that works well also. On the back side of it, I chosen to back it with just a piece of watercolor paper. Another idea though is just if you want to do the whole thing in fabric, you can just put maybe a lighter colored backing on it, a white or cream, where you can actually write on it. I believe the postcard that runs through naked has to say postcard. And if somebody knows, maybe leave a comment on that also. But I believe that is the way that postcard has to be written on there. Again, there's a spot up here for your postage. You would address it here and then write your little note on this side. It's fun to be able to decorate it a little bit. I just added a stamp. I just stamped a little image on there and colored it with my brush pens. We are going to do something very similar to this. I'm going to stick with the 5x7 size. This time around, I'm going to do it in different colors. And notice how the crazy quilt on this one, I added the diamond off to the side. This one I'm going to put more in the center, just to see how that works out. So what I have here is a diamond shaped 3.5 by 2.5. And then I have a variety of strips. These are all about 1 inch to 1.5 inches wide, and they vary in length. These are literally just some scraps that I had, and I just cut the strips off of it. The first thing you do when you crazy quilt is you attach this first piece, and then your very first strip, and it doesn't matter which side you start building on, you're gonna lay it, and you're gonna sew through going 1/4 inch. The thing with crazy quilting is I always like to test it to see when it's folded back that I am not too short. Let's just say that. Not too short on the beginning of your seam, not too short on the end of your seam. So for this project, I'm not going to set my camera up at my sewing machine. I am going to just go and I'm going to stitch that. It's just a basic 1/4 inch seam, and I'll be back to show you. I have my piece stitched on. One of the things that's important when you're doing this kind of quilting is to iron in between each step. And so I have my iron and my ironing board handy, and I just press that down after I sew each strip. Another thing I forgot to mention is I cut my batting a little bit bigger than 5x7 about a 1/2 inch bigger all the way around. It just seems that after you're sewing, things tend to shrink up a little bit after if you put your work in, especially if you do a lot of decorative stitching on this. To cut my little strip down, I do like to use a little a ruler and just and a pen or pencil or whatever and make the marks just to make sure that I'm not cutting it in a funny way. And now it's on to the next strip. And you just choose whatever color you want. And again, I'm going to line this up on the edge, stitch using 1/4 inch, fold, and press. Now again, I want to make sure before I get to my sewing machine that I'm giving my enough length on both the beginning and the end of my seam. And here I don't really have, I want to make sure that that is out enough so that when I draw my line again, it's going to have enough fabric. I'm going to scoot that out a little bit. I am going to go to the sewing machine again with my 1/4 inch seam allowance, and I'll be back to flip and iron. My entire area covered now with my strips. I'm going to flip it over and I'm going to do some trimming. Now this is still a little bit bigger than the 5x7, but I'm going to just cut some of this stuff off that I don't need down to the size of the batting. And now we're on to the fun part of crazy quilting, where we can add our fibers and our ribbons and scraps of lace. I do have a little itty bitty scrap of lace here that I want to add to it somewhere. You can add beads, you can add buttons. I want to caution you a little bit about, again, going through the mail, and there is a thickness requirement or something that actually it can't be too thin. We don't have to worry about that here, but it can't be too thick either, and I think it's a little bit less than 1/4 inch and qualify for the postage stamp. So again, that might be something you want to check into, but just be mindful of that when you're adding your stuff. I have some really glittery ribbon here that I'm going to put on. I want to add my little piece of lace. Keeping this all in the softer pastel theme here. When I add my trim, you can put it anywhere, but I'm going to add it on the seams or close to the seams. And then I'm going to go in with thread. I'm going to use a variegated pink thread and just a cream color thread and add some decorative stitches. I do want to include that diamond decorative stitch because I have it on my machine and we're going with the diamond here. But I'm going to go to and just finish up on this and get my fun little stitching done. I'm going to be back and show you what it all looks like when it's done with the embellishments. I've added all sorts of fiber and yarns and decorative stitches to my little PFA. And now as I'm looking at it, I know that I want this middle to stand out a little bit, or this middle flower. And so I'm going to be going with my Uniball pan and just doing some doodling on that and just try to bring those petals out a little bit. I have a piece of watercolor paper cut to 5 inches by 7 inches. I'm just placing it on the back of this, and I'm going to be trimming the batting to be the same size as this watercolor paper. I had cream colored thread on my serger, so I went and I serged all the way around the edge. On this one I did just a zigzag, so you can do whatever your preference is. If you don't have a serger, you can even bind it like a quilt binding, or just use a zigzag satin stitch. I want to decorate the back of this. I do have our stamp, and I'm going to be using my archival ink. This is like a waterproof ink. I do have a postcard here that I'm looking at, and most all of them have a somewhat of like a center or line that's a little off center. I'm going to just draw that in and then write the word postcards right above on this side. I'm going to be adding some color to my little design down here using similar colors to my front. I'm using white glue to glue a little bit on the back side of my watercolor paper. When this dries a little bit, I'm going to sew around this just to make sure that everything is attached well and lays nice and flat. My little postcard fabric art is complete. I've added the back, and it slips so easily into a frame, so it truly is the gift that keeps on giving. I'm going to link the Facebook group down below, so check that out. Please leave a comment whether you've tried this, whether you're interested. I would love to hear your thoughts. And then I will enter you into the contest where I'm going to be sending both of these out. So thanks so much for joining me. Have a great day and happy creating.